Welcome to the first episode of the podcast Views from the Top. I'm John Meehan, one of the partners at Arma Partners, and it's my pleasure to be here with my friend and colleague, Paul Guély. Paul, maybe for the benefit of the audience, we know each other going back many years. You can give a brief introduction to yourself.
Yes, you and I go back a long, long way. So I'm Paul Guély, a managing partner of the firm. I set it up 22 years ago. I'm French by birth, came over to the UK nearly 40 years ago now with the objective of improving my English for a year. I'm still working on this, making steady progress.
We won't hold that against you.
And I never went back. So I started my career in consulting. Then I went into banking with Morgan Grenfell, Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs. And then I started this business, as I said, 22 years ago and built it with my partners and my colleagues to what it is today. What else can I tell you? Married, 2 kids, 23 and 19, both of them born in London, so dual citizenship. And that's basically me
Who
in a nutshell.
do you support in football?
Who do I support? Arsenal, who have been gallant number 2 for many years, but have a chance this year of winning the Premier League.
And if we go back to just before Arma was set up, you were an illustrious banker at Goldman. You had a young family. .com crash had just happened. What in the earth made you think about setting up a firm that was focused on technology banking?
So I felt at the time, and I still do, that there was a bit of a gap in the market. The sector was not very well covered by the larger banks, who tended to be very opportunistic, showing interest in the tech sector from time to time at the peak of the cycle, and then neglecting it. And then there used to be, way back when, some specialist advisory firms, most of them headquartered in California, that were serving the sector. But all of them at that time had been acquired by bigger banks, got subsumed into those bigger firms, and then no one specialized in the sector anymore. So gap in the market. At the time, there was a bit of turmoil in the tech sector, if you remember. So a lot of the big guys were losing interest in what I thought and still think was actually the future, a big component of the future of the world's economy. So key sector, out of favor for a few years, gap in the market. I had been toying with the idea of doing something like this for a few years, but that disruption in the market was a golden opportunity to invest at a time when everybody else was actually getting out.
And back in those early days, we were 4 people. We were working in a very small room, no real capital behind us. What were some of the lessons that you took from that time, and how do you think they have framed the success of Arma over the last few years?
No capital at all, in fact, as I recall. The first paid check to the then employees was me writing a personal check.
Exactly.
So that immediately created a lot of focus on making money, which, if you recall, we did from day one. Signed up a few clients very quickly. They paid the bills for a while, and we were very focused on the bottom line and being profitable, which I'm proud to say we have been for 22 years uninterrupted. And then we also realized very quickly that a small group of people very, very focused on the sector with limited means, but if they knew what they were doing, could win against much bigger firms. And that David versus Goliath approach to doing business is still a key part of our culture today. Mm-hmm. We're obviously much bigger, but the approach is still the same. Make money, of course, that's the general idea of the exercise. Be very, very focused on your sector as a point of differentiation and take on the big boys without any fear. We did that when we had 4 people, and we still do that today.
And what do you think were some of the challenges or the roadblocks that you came across as you were developing Arma?
There's been many. How long do you have? I've never built a bank before, so I kind of make it up as I go along. And along the way come challenges. Day one, as I said, was make money as quickly as possible because I didn't want to be funding the business personally forever. But we were profitable from the get-go. As you grow, so does the size and the profile of what you do, and then you compete with much bigger firms that have formidable means at their disposal. So this ability to operate a little bit like an elite unit think Navy SEALs or SAS here in the UK, competing with a large territorial army does make a big difference. And if you do that, you can take on the big boys. But challenge number 2, I would say, is we were evolving, and we are still evolving, in a sector that is dominated by very large banks, and they have resources that we don't have, but we win against those. And then there's a whole bunch of logistical challenges that will emerge along the way, ranging from finding the right offices to being able to attract and retain the best people. If you're not very visible, you will struggle to attract them. Once you become visible and successful, it's much easier, but then other banks are going to try to poach them from you. So then the challenge becomes to retain them. I would say today the bulk of the challenges we face are people related. How to continue to attract, retain, and motivate the best people. And if you have the best people, which we do in a service business, everything else flows from that.
And just linked to that, what is the culture that you're looking to build at Arma, and how do you continue to attract, retain, and ultimately make sure that people are successful at the firm?
So culture, I mean, there's a bunch of components to this. One is we're very diverse, as you know. We have 26, last time I checked, different nationalities on the floor. And irrespective of gender, race, or religion, if you're good, you will make it to the top at Arma. That's been a key principle from the get-go, and that remains the case today. So people need to embrace that culture and be very, very comfortable with a very, very, very diverse firm, which happens to be headquartered in London, but does business all over the world. That's number 1. Number 2, I mentioned David versus Goliath. Being ambitious, not being afraid to take on big challenges, big projects, big competitors is a key component of our culture. And then I mentioned the Navy SEALs as well. I don't know if that's the right analogy, but working as a team, a very cohesive team of people fighting for each other is also very important. And then the last thing is you have to be passionate about our sector. And by this, I mean both the tech sector that we cover, but also finance. Because as you know, better than most, we work very long hours. It's a very demanding job. If you're passionate about it, you welcome this. If you do it because it's a job, you will struggle, and that's probably the wrong career for you. But that passion element is the last key component, I think, of our culture.
And if you look at the development of Arma, it's been step change over time, but particularly in the last few years, you've seen just a massive step in terms of the development of the firm, in terms of the number of people, the types of deals that are being done. What is driving that, the ability from Arma to go from strength to strength?
A few things. I mean, the sector we cover has grown. Obviously, the tech sector used to be esoteric and misunderstood when you and I started that business 22 years ago. Today, it's much more mainstream. It cuts across all other sectors of the world's economy. So it's strategically very relevant, and there's a massive market. Within that, we have gained share. And I would say success breeds success. The more deals you do, the more you learn, the more relevant you are, the more experienced you are, the more credible you are for the next deal, for the next pitch, and therefore you're going to win. And therefore you're going to do more deals, and it creates a virtuous circle whereby we do more deals than anyone. We have more people covering the sector than anyone. We have therefore better visibility on what's going on in that sector. That makes us more effective, and therefore we're going to win the next pitch, thereby increasing again the volume of what we do. So we don't want to become a financial supermarket. We do just one thing, and we do it exceedingly well. It's to cover the tech sector and to advise clients in that sector. But in that area today, we are the undisputed leader in Europe, as you know. More deals, more people, more focus. People know that, and therefore they give us additional business, thereby reinforcing that position of leadership.
And if you look at today, Arma has got 150 employees. We're doing 40 to 50 transactions a year. Where to from here? How do we continue to develop, and how are you ultimately going to define success over the next 5 years?
We keep growing. The sector itself is growing all the time. When you and I were young tech bankers, we were covering the tech sector. These days, as you know, within our team, we cover fintech, health tech, retail tech. There's all kinds of flavors of the sector we cover. So the market gets bigger all the time, and there's plenty of scope for expansion. There are sub-segments of the digital economy that we don't cover as much as perhaps we should, and this should be reinforced. There are geographies where we're less active than we should be. We're very strong in Europe, but we have a nascent presence in Asia and in the US. So there's plenty of scope to grow. What's the end goal? What's the end of I think the journey is the reward, as they say, right? I don't see an end to what we're doing. We can keep growing for a very, very long time. Or if one day we reach the goal, I'll be long gone by then, but not in my lifetime, I suspect.
And one question that our clients get asked a lot and that we're constantly analyzing is AI and how that's going to impact the sector and particularly banking. What are your views and how are we embracing it at Arma?
Well, as far as banking, I think it just makes us all more effective and smarter. It's a tool at our disposal that allows us to do more quickly. That's the good news. The bad news is that tool is also available to our competitors. And so if there is a threat from AI, I think if you remember when you and I were starting that business, we kind of took on the big boys with limited resources. There was this thing called the internet that had been invented shortly before we launched the business. It created much more of a level playing field whereby information was available to everybody that previously would not have been. In the same way, AI, I think, is creating more of a level playing field. The main challenge for us is smaller firms emerging using AI that try to compete with us, just like we competed with the big boys years ago. But I see AI as much more of an opportunity than a challenge. As I said, it allows us to do more quickly and to be much smarter. It's also impacting all of our clients, all of which are becoming AI enabled to some degree, and we have to adapt to this. But also that means they need our advice more than ever. So it's increasing our strategic relevance to our clients. I think no one can ignore AI today, irrespective of the sector you're in. And so that tech/AI component is something that no one can ignore. And conveniently, that's what we advise on. So it increases our relevance as well.
And you've built a business from the ground up. You built it into still building, and built it into an international business, as you said, in terms of just the number of people and the diversity of the people that actually work here. What are some of the words of wisdom that you would give to CEOs, entrepreneurs, founders of businesses about how to continue to prevail?
I don't claim to be in a position to give lessons to anyone, but we've learned a few things along the way. One key principle we applied from the get-go was never to cut corners. If you remember, to the point of sometimes being painful with my partners, I always refused to take on bad business, to hire mediocre people, to cut our fees when I felt we deserved more, etc., etc. Those principles have served us very well. In the early days, occasionally it created periods when it was a little bit feast and famine, but by not cutting corners, by sticking to our principles, we maintain the quality of our people, the service we provide, and the reputation of our firm, and that served us extremely well. So that would be one. Two, sounds obvious, but I would say never give up. There have been some challenges along the way. There have been periods when we thought this is hard and we don't know whether we can get to the next level. We stuck at it. We stuck together like a team. We overcame those challenges, but it's a journey and it takes time. And then, always trying to be one step ahead, which is very difficult in our world. Finance is evolving quickly. The tech sector we cover is evolving very, very quickly. And so we have to read up, we have to be on top of what's going on around us. We're not operating in a vacuum. What other people are doing will impact us. So trying to think one step ahead always has served us very well and continues to do so.
I think I remember in the early days, I remember the number of no emails that were received, and the closed doors that we had, and a number of those clients have morphed into extremely successful fee-paying clients at Arma. So I think absolutely, I think that resilience that you demonstrated from the top and has become essentially ingrained in the culture of Arma is definitely something that I think people should take away from this.
Still remember some of those early cold calls when we would call prospective clients and the answer would be, who the hell is Arma and why should I talk to you? And then you had to work your way from that. Today the brand opens many doors, but there's other challenges to overcome. But the general principle is the same. Never take no for an answer, and eventually you'll get there.
And sort of building on that, if some of our younger bankers, what advice would you give them in order to succeed over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, applying those principles, obviously. I started my professional career with a boutique, as I mentioned earlier, called Morgan Grenfell, which no longer exists. I think if you do, you get more exposure to more people, more deals than you do at the larger firms. So I think for those youngsters who start with us and who very quickly get exposed to live transactions and to clients, that's a privilege, and they should recognize that, and they can learn very quickly. Some will be better at certain aspects of the job than others. The temptation, if you're good at sector, less good at numbers, for example, is to focus on writing sector pieces and avoid the number crunching side of the job. I would do exactly the opposite of that. Try to focus on the areas where perhaps you're less immediately able to perform and turn a weakness into a strength. It's not easy. The natural temptation is to go the other way. But that's something that I try to apply with varying degrees of success when I was a young banker. And I would recommend that they do. And then frankly, if you're focusing on finance and tech, you are at the crossroads of two trends that I don't see how you can go wrong. You're going to have to adapt along the way, but I think it's a very exciting place to be right now.
If you reflect on the last 22 years, is there anything that you would have done differently or thought about in another way?
Many things. How long do you have? But yeah, of course, you make mistakes along the way, right? You learn from those mistakes and then you do better the next time. In the early days, we felt the need, as you will remember, to have an office in the US. We've come to realize since that you can operate from pretty much any geography if you know what you're doing. You can be based in Europe covering the world. You can be based in the US. You could be based in Asia. It doesn't matter that much. So I think feeling the need to have offices all over the map, that's less relevant than being willing to travel to where your clients are from wherever you're based. And in retrospect, I would be, more geographically focused than we were at some point. We are now. The bulk of our people are based here in the Shard. What else? There's been lots of mistakes along the way. We kind of forgot at some point we were growing so fast that making money took precedence over protecting our culture, and we became a little bit of a sweatshop for a couple of years. We lost some good people as a result. We had lost sight of the importance of the culture in the business. We were too busy doing deals and making money, and we lost some people and we made less money, and we kind of lost touch with some of our core values. We took corrective action, but I wish I had seen that coming. So don't allow the growth of the business to get in the way of preserving the culture. Would probably be another big one for me. And then, as I said, many mistakes along the way, but that should be the topic of a separate podcast. We don't have the time to cover all of them.
Obviously, one topic that's very relevant at the moment is the overall deal environment. What's your view over the next 12 months of some of the key trends that we're going to see on the M&A side that are relevant to Arma?
So, the macro picture, you've got relatively benign market conditions, right? We've got war in Europe, we've got instability in various parts of the world, but the stock market is at record highs. And so that's positive from that point of view. But because the world is so unpredictable and there are so many new trends challenging some of our clients, there's also a huge amount of uncertainty. So I would say the market environment going forward for the next 12 months is going to be volatile, challenging, but also a source of opportunity. If ever there was a time when our clients needed advice, I would say this is now. A rising tide lifts all the boats. When everything is hunky-dory and going well and easy, we may look like heroes, but so does everybody else. When the market is more challenging, that's when you need to be close to your clients to advise them. It's more difficult to get the deals over the line. Clients need our advice more than they would if the market were perfect in every conceivable way. That's not the case. Macro picture, as I said, is generally positive, but there are some headwinds as well that need to be navigated.
What do you see as the challenges, therefore, for Arma over the next 12, 24 months?
Well, we are very busy, as you know. So continuing to attract and retain people for sure, having enough people to do the work. Staying close to our clients. As we get bigger, we may be tempted to delegate down, and perhaps the partners are less in touch with their clients, and we can't afford to do that. We need to remain close to them. So keeping that human touch and that connectivity with the client. Also, it's very tempting in the era of video calls and Zoom and Teams, etc., to not meet clients. I think you need to be close to your clients, including being willing to travel to where they are and spend time with them. But I think we'll be doing fine. I mean, that is very much part of our culture, and we will continue to remain relentlessly focused on our sector and our clients. As I said, we're not a financial supermarket. We're high-end boutique, and as part of that, we always stay very, very close to our sector and to our clients.
Well, Paul, we can't go on without talking a little bit about the podcast and what we're trying to achieve through this series. Perhaps you can give us a little bit of your insights and what we're expecting to get out of this podcast.
So, well, as you know, you and I are not the stars of the show. We are merely doing the introduction to the podcast. But more importantly, some very, very smart people, CEOs of businesses and important members of our ecosystem will be contributing their views about what's going on in our sector, in the tech sector, in the deal-making environment. And I think our objective is to allow members of our ecosystem and people who watch that podcast to benefit from the sum total of all the wisdom that these people will contribute.
And what would be your parting words to the audience today in terms of what would you like them to remember about Arma in particular and where we are and where we're going?
I think it's just the start of the journey. You talked to me about what we've accomplished to this date. I think there is much more ahead of us than there is behind us. The tech sector is no longer just a vertical alongside other verticals. It now cuts across every component of the world's economy. And then, as I said, geographically, yes, we're number one in Europe, but we're barely scratching the surface in North America and in Asia. So I would say it's the start of the journey. I may or may not be the right steward forever. At some point, someone will take over, and I welcome that. But I think we have plenty of growth ahead of us still, whilst continuing to focus on our sector, which conveniently is growing all the time, so we can grow with it.
Well, thank you very much for the discussion, Paul. Very insightful. It was great to learn about the development of Arma over the last number of years, your perspectives on the M&A environment, and also what your strategy is for Arma over the coming years. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We hope the listeners enjoyed this podcast and look forward to everyone tuning in throughout this whole series.